Scanning for audio.
Welcome once again to the Tin Dog Podcast. And indeed, this is one of the recorded back-to-back Tin Dog podcasts. So how have you been since I last spoke to you? Now, I'm going to try and deal with the history of the Cybermen as a race in Doctor Who.
Time is running out for the inhabitants of Mondas. Once human themselves, they decided to replace parts of their body with cybernetics. Until eventually, nothing but the brain was left. And born from the ashes were the Cybermen.
I originally set out, after I'd completed the history of the Daleks, to do a Cyberman history. I did quite a few notes, and then kind of forgot about it for a while. Well, we had a whole new series of Doctor Who to talk about, and I didn't really think it was going to be a problem. But when Attack of the Cybermen rolled round on DVD, I thought, no, I'll sit down and I'll tell you all about the history of the Cyber people. I got my enormous Cyberman book out, the one by Davy Banks, the one with the Cyber Leader on the front and that great painting. I got my copy of the Discontinuity Guide out, and the fantastic Lance Parkin book, A History. And it wasn't until I started making little notes that I realised things were a little bit more complicated than I originally thought. With the Daleks, you've got two histories, but the design of the Dalek largely stays the same. Alright, their paint job changes, and during the Time War, we end up with Daleks that apparently eat time energy. But with the Cybermen, almost every time they've appeared, until recent years, they've changed the design. Now, obviously, in reality, the reason for this was because budgets had increased, technology had moved on. The idea of Cybermen existing as body horror from when they first arrived, all the way through to political correctness gone mad, as seen in the speech that the Cyberman gives to the family in the battle for Canary Wharf. They have evolved, they have changed, they have used the cutting-edge technology of the time, i.e. the time that the show was made, in order to reflect their costumes. But we're not really interested in that. Well, we are on a certain level, but what really interests us, from a purely sitting in the pub, chatting about the Cybermen kind of a way, is how come certain stories set in the past have more advanced Cybermen than others, that they haven't met Cybermen when apparently they have met Cybermen, and so on, and so on. Lots of people have lots and lots of theories, and also the Cybermen themselves bring up all sorts of issues when it comes to other Doctor Who monsters and the history of Earth. This is the point where every single Doctor Who fan really has their own theory, and can go with almost whatever they think. For example, in the book A History, they examine all of the alternative origin stories of the Cybermen. The story set in 1986, filmed in 1966, The 10th Planet. This is the first time we ever see the Cybermen on screen.
We are called Cybermen.
Cybermen?
Yes, Cybermen. We were exactly like you once, but our cybernetic scientists realized that our race was getting weak.
Weak? How?
Our lifespan was getting shorter, so our scientists and doctors devised spare parts for our bodies until we could be almost completely replaced.
But this book actually goes further back than that to explain the Cybermen. It goes back to a First Doctor story that I've only recently discovered. And by discovered, I don't mean I went across to Africa and fought a civil war in order to find lost videotapes. No, I mean I finally tracked it down on VHS and watched it. It's not even remotely as exciting as some of the things that's been said in the press of late, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, just leave it there. In the Keys of Marinus, we have a race of creatures called the Void, who are mainly human, but again have a sort of rubber swimsuit affair going on, and big handlebars in their head. There's also a large supercomputer running the planet that bears more than a passing resemblance to the cyber controllers seen during the 60s. But why link a 1964 story with the Cybermen? Well, all this comes down to Doctor Who Monthly, and one of the stories that they ran, I believe it was called the Planet Shapers or the World Shapers, and I can see the arguments for this. But let's stick with what we know about the Cybermen first. I think it'll be easier for everyone involved. And of course I'm going to be referring back to spare parts.
It's taken 6 years training, but the sky's the limit today as mankind sets out on its mission to see the stars.
This area is restricted to civilians.
Why? What aren't we supposed to see?
I saw your friend. Seemed like an amiable chap.
The doctor?
At Dodds.
What were you doing there?
What's happening?
Oh, power cut. Just when I got the lights on.
Sounds like your society's in its death throes. Not the end of the world. You could be right. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Mondas doesn't have a future after all.
Emergency generators! Get the backup generators running!
Keep moving.
It's too dark to see.
No one leaves! No one!
Dr. Van Allen, you are relieved of your duties.
How dare you, Zhang! All this is my work! I created you!
And I am superior to you. Be proud while you still have the capacity.
That travesty that was once a human being is part of it. I don't know how long it'll take. I'm not even sure I want to stop it. But I can give you a wake-up call. It's up to you, not me, to change things and stop this horror once and for all.
Clear these streets. Return to your homes. There is nothing to see.
Basically, this is an example of Doctor Who fandom at its best and its worst. We take any part that we really love and go with it. So let's deal with the origins of the Cybermen. Apparently Earth has a twin planet. It exists in the same orbit as us, and on this planet, parallel with us, we have either a parallel evolution where mankind evolves on both worlds, or more likely, a race of man creatures, we'll call them humans, we might as well, manages to jump from one planet to another planet using small spaceships. It's a bit like the original Battlestar Galactica thing where an ancient civilization visits Earth. This other planet, and we're going to call it Mondas, is affected by the arrival of an interstellar body. Now normally it's assumed it's the Moon, which throws it out into deep space, and what you mean by deep space, again, that's another argument, because some people would say that it's interstellar space near a nebula or something like that, way beyond the solar system, while other people would say in order for life to survive, the speed that it would be travelling at couldn't possibly be as fast, and to allow for a return journey lasting several million years, it would only actually be able to make it to the edge of our solar system and back again, but that is implying too much thought. The more pedantic of you will have spotted that there's a problem with this, apart from the fact that we haven't actually seen, or indeed know about a twin planet at all. You see, the whole Moon arriving and having an effect on the local planets is actually the origin story of the Silurians. Again, there's a Doctor Who Monthly strip that dealt with a Cyberman and Silurian parallel storyline. But again, this is comics. Does this count? This is not what we've seen on TV. As far as we're concerned, on TV is what counts, followed by Big Finish and then books. Why do we think this? It's fairly arbitrary, but we do feel this way about it. Perhaps it's because the TV uses the actors, the audios use the actors, and everything else is just kind of words on paper. Stuff that can be refuted and ignored. And so this planet, for some reason, this planet drifts away and ends up near a nebula. The people have retreated to large underground cities and are near extinction. They have developed cybernetic replacements for their failing limbs, and it's not until the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa arrive, and this is in the Big Finish audio spare parts, that it is discovered that the Doctor has a certain bit of his pituitary gland that will allow cyber augmentation to take control completely and be 100% successful. It's too late by this point to stop the development of very, very early Cybermen. These Cybermen then change the course of the planet and head back towards Earth. On the way, they also discover space travel. This is the important aspect. Some Cybermen leave the original 10th planet Cybermen, the ones on Mondas, the one travelling back towards Earth, and these are the Cybermen who go on to evolve and redesign themselves. Now it's these Cybermen, the ones who leave Mondas, trying to find a new home, or more likely, more people to convert into Cybermen, that become the source of most of the classic Cybermen who follow. They apparently encounter the Doctor on Planet 14. Now this is mentioned in the invasion, and they have travelled to Earth before the arrival of the Mondas Cybermen. Basically their spaceship's just a little bit faster, thus allowing for a slightly different design of Cybermen to appear in the story The Invasion. And of course they mention that they've met the Doctor after invading Planet 14. Again, this is mentioned in The Invasion. There is a theory that the Doctor accidentally let slip about the Silver Nemesis return at this point, but that really is just fan conjecture. Meanwhile, the more primitive Cybermen, the ones on Mondas, develop this sort of energy stealing technology as they travel back towards Earth, because it is piloted by a galactic propulsion system. Now, this is mentioned in Attack of the Cybermen, and so that brings us back to, of course, the 10th planet. So, let us skip back to the Cybermen who left Mondas. In 1988, these Cybermen who left find out about the destruction of Mondas. So they hatch a plan to come back to Earth, this is only a couple of years later, and pick up the Silver Nemesis. Weirdly enough, they seem to be completely briefed on all this, including something about Lady Painfort, and I'm not sure how they got that information at all. But Cybermen are very good at sort of thing. They've probably got the internet, and they could look her up on Wiki. So forgetting Silver Nemesis, which happens in 1988, the Cybermen still need to establish a new base. They then head towards the planet Telos. Again, this is in Attack of the Cybermen. Now, the Cryons live there. Telos is, of course, a very cold planet, apparently festooned with diamonds, but they're never seen in the Patrick Troughton Tomb of the Cybermen story. And the Cybermen do what apparently they do best. They have a nap. So, by 2070, the second Doctor encounters yet another group of Cybermen. These are the ones on the moon base, and according to Tomb of the Cybermen, they were put in part attempting to replenish some supplies after the destruction of Mondas. Again, kinda doesn't really make sense, but let's just go with it. So, we're now up to the 21st or early 22nd century. The Cybermen apparently hatch another plan. They're awfully good at this. Now, this involves the wheel in space. Again, a second Doctor story. The design of these Cybermen is very, very similar to each other. The number of fingers may change, the type of golf balls used on the side of the swimsuit may change, but they're still basically the same design. And it's these Cybermen who are living on Telos when the Doctor finally arrives there in Tomb of the Cybermen. Now, this story is, of course, set many years after the Telos segments in Tomb of the Cybermen, or is it around the same time? You just can't tell because the designs in both stories differ so drastically. We then skip forward to the 26th century and one of the cyber wars. I'm not sure that if this is the cyber war mentioned in the Big Finish miniseries or not. To be completely honest, I suspect it's not. This war goes very, very badly. And of course the Cybermen have evolved once more. Their costumes do look very much different. They decide to set out and destroy the planet Voga. This is the planet mentioned some podcasts ago, with the seal of Rassilon on the wall that nobody seems to mention at all. And these Cybermen, this is the story Revenge of the Cybermen, they're foiled. But to be fair, there's only 4 of them. Hardly a cutting-edge battle fleet. Now, according to the discontinuity guide, at this point, the Cybermen are forced to consolidate their position on Telos. The Cybermen, like the Daleks before them, begin to experiment with time travel technology. However, their science is incapable of producing a functioning time machine. Instead of that, they do what most people do when they can't build something themselves. They get one from someone else. They steal a time machine from someone else. It's never quite said who. Again, this is an Attack of the Cybermen. Can you see why this story is so complicated? And attempt to plunder its secrets. The first time they use the time machine is to travel back to 1985 in order to save Mondas and destroy the Earth, ensuring that the humans would never be able to contribute to the alliance against it. And, rather unsurprisingly, this fails. 15,000 Cybermen travel back to the 26th century in an abortive attempt to change the outcome of the cyber wars, and this is in Earthshock, and perhaps this was the last-ditch time of the once powerful race. Can you see why the cyber history is so complicated? When you're watching the stories, they just kind of wash over you. You think they're great, they're a lovely romp, sometimes the Cybermen are better, sometimes they're worse, sometimes they use emotion as a weapon rather than become emotional as they apparently are, David Banks has some extremely good theories on this, which you can find in his book, but all of this is knocked on the head when on a parallel Earth, the guy who played Trigger makes all computer systems compatible with each other and brings about a whole new race of Cybermen. Perhaps the Cybersmen, which is what I'll have to call them, fall through the time warp at the end of the next Doctor and end up on a small, cold, revolving planet, leaving the solar system, and people find the small broken bits of cyber technology, and thus the whole thing is woven into itself. Just another theory to put into the mix. I know a lot of people want classic Cybermen and the Cybersmen to meet at some point, but does it really matter? The idea of the Cybermen is that they are us, augmented, changed. And does it really matter where they come from or what created them? It's the idea that makes them scary. Before I go, here's the trailer for a coming DVD, The Image of Fendal.
There's someone coming. Can you hear it? Someone coming.
Your discovery could be one of the most important milestones in human development.
I need help.
I think it's the Fendal.
Is it alive?
Yes.
Adam!
Here? I said don't touch her! There are 4,000 million people here on your planet. And if I'm right, within a year, there'll be just one left alive.
The place must be left for the one that kills.
It grows and exists by death.
This is not how it should be! You are being used! Mankind has been used!
So until next time, be seeing you. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.